So here we sit, having learned the philosophy, having learned the steps, knowing we're in the retail business, knowing what it takes to sell Cottage Garden, knowing how to sell Cottage Garden. But I'm going to tell you something. My guess is you sell other lines other than Cottage Garden. Is that right? Am I right? You sell something other than Cottage Garden. So the reality is that I'm competing with the other lines that you sell. But I got to tell you something interesting. I was actually at a national sales meeting a number of years ago, almost a decade ago. And I'm at this national sales meeting and my number one sales rep is there. His name is Cy. Cy was there. He's the number one sales rep. Nobody sells as much Cottage Garden as him. And I have this brainstorm right in the middle of the presentation. I'm going to call on Cy. I'm going to have him stand up and tell everybody how he became the number one salesman of Cottage Garden. So I call on Cy. He stands up. And he looks at me kind of funny and frowns and tilts his head, and I'm thinking, oh, this is not good. He says, I'm going to be honest with you, Mark. I don't really care for Cottage Garden product. I wouldn't have it in my home. And instantly, I'm beet red. I'm just totally red. The room temperature just went up 30 degrees, and I'm thinking, what a mistake that I've made. Why did I do this? How am I going to get out of this? And then he says, you see, even though Cottage Garden is not my taste, I need you to know that I represent over 30 product lines. Over 30 product lines. And it gets a little confusing sometimes, and it's hard to present all my product lines to my retailers. In fact, in all my years, and Cy was a very seasoned rep, he said, what I've come to realize is that I've really only got one thing to offer. One thing, one piece that I'm bringing to the table every day, and that's my time. And I've got a limited amount of time. We all have 24 hours in a day. So I've got to look at my time as my most valuable asset that I have. And what I figured out with Cottage Garden is I was spending less time selling Cottage Garden and getting more dollars than any line in my bag. He said, over time I realized that Cottage Garden was the number one dollar per minute line that he had in his bag. Number one. Now, it hit me instantly right then. I didn't come up with number $1 per minute. Cy came up with number $1 per minute. But I realized that a couple retailers built a company not to be the number one line in a rep's bag, but to be the number $1 per minute line that they have. Because you see, if we're your number $1 per minute, then if you've got 30 minutes to sell Cottage Garden, you'll sell Cottage Garden. If you've got 3 minutes to sell to a retailer, you'll sell Cottage Garden. If you've got 3 hours to sell to a retailer, you'll sell Cottage Garden. Because why wouldn't you pull out your number $1 per minute line? Why wouldn't you pull it out? Why wouldn't you place that silver bullet inside of their store that we're going to stand behind and you're going to service? Now I'm going to tell you something. We have reps that do over $100,000 a year selling Cottage Garden. We have quite a few of them actually that do over $100,000 a year. Every single one of them would tell you Cottage Garden is easy, it's simple, and it's efficient to sell. Reps that are struggling selling Cottage Garden are going to tell you it's hard, it's difficult, and it's a challenge. So if you find yourself seeing Cottage Garden as hard or difficult, call us. You've got to call us. Let us help you. Because the reps that are doing $100,000 a year are spending 15 minutes or less in a retail environment getting the highest return for their time of any line that they sell. We know we're not going to be the number one line that you have, but we want to be the number $1 per minute. That's our goal. And if we're not that for you, you call us. Let us help you become the number one line that you sell dollar per minute in your bag. That's where we want to be with you, and that's where we hope that we'll be with you very shortly.